Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Johnson, and with me is Evelyn Modal. We are your co-hosts for the Interplay Podcast, a place where we ask and answer questions about everything non-speaking. If you're an individual who is non-speaking or unreliably speaking, or know someone who is, this podcast is for you. Come join us as we chat about the things that we have learned from the true experts, the autistics themselves, and listen in when we interview parents, researchers, and more.
Hi, everyone. Evelyn here. So happy you could join me on another episode of the Interplay Podcast. I have a very special guest with us today, and I think you will learn a lot from him. Please help me welcome Dave Spullum. Dave, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So whether you are a parent or an educator, a professional, or if you are a non-speaker yourself, I think that you're going to be able to relate to Dave as he shares his journey with us about having a neurodiverse son of his own. So I think let's just get started there, Dave, if you don't mind. Maybe we could start by you giving us a little background about yourself, your journey, so our listeners can get a good opportunity to know you a little bit better.
I'm Dave. I lived in Boston for the last 25 years or so, and then I moved out to Tampa about 2 years ago. I have a son, Keen. He's just turned 18. He has a condition called Fragile X, which is the leading inherited cause of mental impairment, known cause of mental impairment in the world. And we went through the same gamut of stuff that I'm sure most of the folks on here are doing. You know, once we got diagnosed with him at 6 months old. He had a couple of other things going on, nystagmus and body issues that caused us to go to the doctor, and we had a really hard time getting just finding out what was wrong. There wasn't nothing really seemingly wrong, but he wasn't reaching a lot of the milestones that a typical 6-month-old would make. So of course we did the whole battery test, spent a week in Children's Hospital in Boston, doing spinal taps, brain scans, you name it. That kid had it done to him, and then we finally talked to a geneticist. The geneticist said, you know, let's test for Fragile X, and it turned out that Keen had Fragile X. Again, Kate, his mom Kate, was a carrier, and that was it. You know, that was really the start of our journey. And you go through the whole, oh crap, you know, so what do I do now? And this you know, it was definitely an overwhelming information to get, and how you cope with it and how you deal with it. And it was tough. It really was. His mom and I ended up divorcing. And Keen lived with his mom for most of the time, and lived with me on weekends for the next year. And we were in the public school system doing, you know, IEPs and special ed classes and occupational therapists and PT, you name it. He went through the whole gamut of stuff. We moved down to Tampa 2 years ago. He came to live with me full time about 5 years ago. He was getting a little bigger and tougher for his mom to handle, so he came to live with me because, you know, I'm a big guy, and that the physicality side of things wasn't an issue for me. I worked from home, so it wasn't too difficult for me to be with him. He came to live with me, but we were up in the Northeast, up in New Hampshire, long cold winters, and I decided that it was tough. It was tough for us to get outside and do anything because of his needs and whatever. So I said, you know, I'm going to pack up the family truck and move us to Tampa. So him and I moved down to Tampa 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now. We found Dana in Interplay quite by accident. I put him in the public school system here. I was definitely concerned about him in the public school system here in Hillsborough County. I'm in Hillsborough area, Tampa. You know, I didn't think it was a great fit for him. They were busing him all the way over to the other side of town. He was like sitting on a bus for almost over an hour each way, and I just knew it wasn't right for him. So I was getting very worried and very thing. And I happened to talk to a neighbor, and she was at a museum in Tampa the following weekend with her kids, and she bumped into you and some of the other folks from TBLBC doing a museum tour in Tampa, and that's how I found out about Dana and Interplay. And I gave her a call, and his mom Kate went to see Dana and met with Dana. And then it's been 2 years since, and it's been almost 2 years to the day, actually. What's today? Yeah, almost 2 years to the day since we met with Dana. And it's nothing short of life-changing for all of us, not just for Cian, but certainly for me. And getting him on the spelling, the S2C and the spelling to communicate has been mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And it's such, our lives, if I'd known about it 10 years ago, I would have moved here just for it to happen. So just luck. It was just luck or coincidence or divine intervention, whatever realm you want to call on. That was it.
Good. Yeah, I say divine intervention for sure. I remember meeting Cian January of 2019 at school when he started. And I remember introducing the letterboards to him, and it was amazing. I mean, at that point, everything was so new to him, obviously the new environment, the new everything. And at that point, I couldn't, he wanted to sit on the floor, and I was like, all right, we'll sit on the floor. And that's what we did. And it was a lot, it's a huge motor demand, everything that we're asking him to do. But he never once didn't want to spell. It was always, he'd see me come in and he'd be like, oh, spelling. And slowly over time, we got sitting in a chair and got, but it didn't take that long. But I remember very well coming in and introducing Cian and to the letterboard and to spelling, and we sat on the floor for a while. And but that was okay. And I think of, gosh, where we are now, and the progress and the changes have been just dramatic and amazing, And you mentioned, school before, and of course in their school now, and it's very different environments. But I wonder, and me having the education background and being an educator myself, and, didn't know a lot until really I met Dana and understood what S2C was all about, and really what we're dealing with people that have motor differences. Because they seem like cognitive differences, they seem like there's a deficit. So I wonder, you mentioned that you had been looking through some of Cian's old school goals and things, and I wonder if maybe you could share some of the goals that they had for Cian as he was 16 at the time?
Yeah, when we moved down here, he turned 18 last July. So yeah, he was 16 when he started at Invictus or Interplay, as it's called now. With the IEP we brought down from New Hampshire, it was very detailed, much more detailed than a Hillsborough. I don't know if it's a Florida. I don't know the same standards across Florida, but certainly in Hillsborough, I mean, the one we got back from Hillsborough was 2 pages, and like compared to the ones we had up north, which are 50, 60, 100 pages, very detailed, very goal-oriented. All the programs that he was in up north were largely ABA based, although we were starting, because of his age, we were starting to transition out of the ABA stuff into more life skills sort of stuff. But some of the goals, I grabbed one of his old progress reports, and some of the goals he had on there was by March 2018, Cian will demonstrate one-to-one correspondence for numbers 1 to 18 with at least 70% accuracy. And he'd only attempted, he hadn't mastered that skill as it is today. This is December 27, 2018. And I like to see that now, to read this. I grabbed this last night, and to read this now, and to know now knowing now what I know, and I seen him do math. I sat on a class with him not so long ago talking about quantum physics, and he was answering questions in a proper fashion. He was answering the questions related to quantum physics, and to see these questions, these type of questions on here, just blows my mind. Cian will add the next dollar to make a new value: $6, $11, and $21 with coins included, 25% accuracy. Cian will add the next $3 to make a new value. I mean, just such basic stuff. Cian will divide objects into 5 sets, match the number to the set, and subdivide the sets. Cian will be able to read at a level C which is basically children's, pretty basic, basic reading level. And now he's, he reads at school. He literally reads chemistry books and history books, and even that, like he'd always, as a child, he'd always flick through books, and a lot of his peers, a lot of other Fragile X kids that I've met would do the same thing. They just flick through books and they enjoyed that thing. And he's always been obsessed by books, and it was always a challenge to get him away from children's books to something more age appropriate. And you kind of, because you believe this is a cognitive issue, you think it's appropriate that a 15-year-old is looking at a 3-year-old's or sometimes a baby book. But he would always flick through books, no matter what the books were. He would flick through them. And now his favorite books at school is a huge chemistry book and a huge history book. And even then, like, I didn't believe he was reading it, because he literally just, flicking the pages like you were looking for a number in the phone book, like, oh, P, where's P, and that's the way he looked through these books. But now I know that he's actually absorbing some, if not all, the content in those books very quickly, and can demonstrate, that he's seen it and knows the subject matter. And it's like, it's incredible. It really, really is. It's mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. I mean, and I'm sure as a parent, it's, hard to believe probably at first. And even as an educator, I feel like, because I remember very vividly sitting with some of the kids that I still work with now, actually kids, teenagers, whatnot, but they were, like 4 years ago, and sitting there before I was taught anything about spelling to communicate, before I learned anything about really the motor differences and how it impacts really all communication. And I sat there with these very same kids who now I'm having these quantum physics conversations with, where I'm like, whoa, you're way smarter than me. I don't even know what's going on. But I would sit there and say, okay, we're going to add 3 + 4. And then thinking that I could rely either on their voice or their, handwriting, and they would get it wrong every time. And I would say, well, the educator in me, I'd say, okay, well, let me get some manipulatives. Let me get 3 pencils and then 4 markers, and let's add all, everything that we have together. And then we'd count it up together. And then I'd say, okay, like there's 7, what's the answer? And they would say something different, or they might, say what I'm saying. And I was like, man, what am I doing wrong as an educator? And I was like, well, gosh, maybe I'm not tapping into the right part. I'm missing something, and I was really beating myself up. And then lo and behold, these very same kids just really, I would say, maybe a few months later, when I started learning spelling, communicate, and all these things that I think is so important, and that's why we're here today, to share this message with people. That, wow, like it was there, like they had it the whole time. And thank God they were patient with me and realized that I wasn't trying to be, a jerk, and that I really was like, had a place of love, because I can't imagine, having the answer to something, being, taught and not being able to give the answer. And so then the person sitting there just thinks that you don't know. Like, talk about frustration.
Well, some of these goals on his IEPs, like these basic counting goals, like counting to 1 to 20 type stuff, they were being punted because he wasn't able to demonstrate mastery of these skills. They were getting pushed on to IEPs, year after year, because they weren't mastered. And these would lead to pitch battles in IEP meetings, because the goals weren't moving. Like, we were going, well, hold on, he's supposed to be here, he's supposed to be doing this, you're telling me he's doing all this work and he's getting all this therapy, but here we are still, these goals are, and the teachers and the people, we'll leave administrators out of the conversation and just talk about the teachers. And that Keane had in his life were wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful educators, and wonderful, well-intended people that were doing their very best for him. There's not one of them that I would criticize for what they were doing, or most of them cared for and loved Keane very much. I still keep in touch with some to this day. But these things are just getting, and I cannot imagine the frustration of to be in that situation where I'm getting asked these same questions all the time. I can't imagine, but I'd be screaming inside, like literally screaming, to be heard. It's like, some of the behaviors that we see and from autistic kids, they kind of make sense when you factor in all these things. I know I'd be throwing things. I really would. I'd be screaming. I'd be doing anything to get, attention to try and draw attention to me.
I know, and even along with that, it makes me think of, because the book Ito and Autism Land, which you read, which was my first, peering into the mind of an autistic, right, or non-speaking autistic. And I remember Ito talking about, because he talks about Autism Land and how it's, he can get drawn into that space really easily, and for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's so much sensory going on over there, and it's, visually, auditorily, but it's also like an escape from a reality of people that don't know what's going on, and then that's like, gosh, talk about, you think about it, like, so heartbreaking, and and just the patience that they have to have is just, it's profound.
Well, Ito wasn't the first book I read wasn't the Ito one. I can't remember the name of it, but there was one by a sister wrote it. A sister of a non-speaker wrote it. It was one Dana who told me. I can't remember that right now. I'll find out and you can put it in the notes. But I remember before he'd even started school, after we met with Dana and we made plans to go to Invictus or Interplay, I wanted to find more about this stuff. I signed up for this thing and I wanted to find more. And I read this book. I remember I was flying up to Boston to take care of some stuff in Boston. And I'm literally weeping on the plane because of the stuff you're talking about. Like, just this, if what she was saying was true, because I didn't fully believe it at the time. It was lots of harebrained stuff comes out about autism all the time. Don't eat cornflakes, they cause autism, that sort of crazy stuff. I remember sitting on a plane to Boston going, just literally crying, weeping on the plane going, oh my God, if this is true and this is what I've been doing to my kid for all these years, I mean, what a bad dad am I, what a bad father am I, and what a bad job I've done. And it was tough. It was really tough to make that leap, to make that jump.
So speaking of which, when I know, because so here you are on this journey, and you're, you had one way of thinking for a while, and you thought that was, the best way to go, your focus, and kind of just doing what the experts were explaining and telling you to do, and that was best for Kian. And then you get this new information and start learning, another way of thinking, a new way. Would you say, and I'm just curious because I feel like everybody is gets it a little differently. Some make the immediate switch, some, but it seems like to me, like the majority, it takes time for parents to really grasp like the full capacity of what they've just learned about their child or their children. Some, who have several children who are have motor differences and sensory differences. What would you say?
No, for me, for me, it's still it's a daily reminder, because we're still dealing with a lot of the, how do I put it politely, with the physical manifestations of Kian's autism. Like, so, we still have things like bathroom accidents and he still has periods of dysregulation where he's just, he's tough and being out in public and dealing with those things. And I'm not, the public side of things doesn't bother me, but just dealing with those behaviors. So you still have, what looks like what you were treating. So I need the constant reminder, particularly about the presumption of competence, because I was only talking to somebody the other day. It's like, I've made every decision for this child since he was 6 minutes old. I mean, literally every decision as to what he wears, what he eats, where he goes, what he does, everything. With little to no input. So even just getting into the habit of asking him his opinion, because trust me, he has an opinion on pretty much everything I ask him, but just remembering to get his opinion is tough, is challenging. I need that constant reminder, because once you most of the time I've been a single dad most of this time, so I'm just trying to get through my day most of the day to to get on with life and work full time and take care of him and help him out. So you just get into these routines and ruts of going, I'm making dinner, you're eating this whether you want it or not, and it's tough to get out of those habits. It really, really is, to actually get him, particularly now. Keen just turned 18, as I said, so he's at a point where he should be making a lot of these decisions, and he's capable of making a lot of these decisions for himself. And worse, because he's always become conditioned to have these decisions made for him. So a lot of times it's hard for him to he won't give you his opinion because you've always made those decisions. Why the hell are you asking me now, Dad? So it's a tough thing, and I think that's part of the process. Is like the one that's getting educated here is me more so than him, and because it's really about me changing. He's just doing what he's already done. He was always smart, and he was always brilliant, and he was always learning. I'm just helping. I was just along for the ride, and what, lo and behold, what I found out in the last 2 years is that I'm way behind. I need to catch up. So I'm the one that's playing catch up, not him.
So when you said that, it reminded me of when you told me the story of when I first started coaching you to get on the letterboards with Kian, and things it was obviously different, and I mean like different scenarios. So you guys, being a CRP is a very special relationship, right? So it's, not just anyone could be a CRP. It involves, trust and patience. And I mean, it's just it's a beautiful relationship, but it's a different one. So, even though you and Kian had this great relationship as father and son, we're adding like another dynamic to it. And it can be, change for a lot of autistics can be really hard, even though, on the inside they're like, yes, but on the outside it's hard to get, for their bodies to get,
sure.
In the right place to make that change happen. And so I remember, I remember our early times, but you brought this up a few months ago to me, and I thought it was fantastic because you said, I remember in the beginning, when I was, you were teaching me how to do this, and you kept saying to Kian, you got this, but we have got to teach your dad. So, you're the teacher, and, you and I are teaching him and this and that. And you said to me, Evelyn, I was sitting there listening to you thinking, oh, she's so funny. Like, whatever she has to do to get Kian to, spell, of course, tell him he's the teacher. And then she said it didn't occur to you till like months later that like, oh, she was being serious. He is teaching me, and he's the teacher, I'm the student. Like, oh, I get it. But, in the beginning, you're like, sure, tell him whatever you want to tell him. And I'm like, no, he is the teacher.
The funny thing is, though, that message, that like he's been teaching me all my life. He really has. Like, particularly on the patient. I'm not a patient man by any stretch of the imagination. And anybody who knows me will tell you I'm not a patient man. When it comes to Kian, I'm extremely patient, and he's taught me that. He's the one that made me that way. And he's always been teaching me. He's taught me so much. Kian has taught me more than I'll ever hope to teach him. By no question at all. He's amazing. He really is.
Yeah, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. So I'm going to pose this question to you. So I'm sure it's probably happened, but if you were to meet another parent who has a non-speaker, and I say, we've talked about it a little bit in the podcast, but non-speaker is pretty much an umbrella term for anyone who has a motor and sensory difference, who doesn't use speech as a reliable means of communication. So they could have some speech. So Kian's got some speech, but there are others that, don't really have any words. And but if you were to meet a parent of a non-speaker, knowing what you know now, what would you say to them? I watched your last podcast yesterday, the intro podcast. I don't know where this one is in the agenda, but the intro podcast, and you said something that really paused me thought that is appropriate here. You said, and I'm going to paraphrase it, I'm sure I'll butcher it, but you talked about your time as an educator and how
now looking back and you're like almost in horror at when your mom or your dad said to you, well, once you know more, do better. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. You know about spelling to communicate now, and you're applying that, and you know that's a better way to do it. But I think the piece that's missing from that is that you need to be trying to do better. You need to try to find that better. What is better? And I think as parents of non-speakers, we're inclined to get on that spot where I touched about, is that you get into the routines in life and you're just trying to cope through the day, to get through the day. So if you had a successful day, really, you've had no tantrums or no bathroom accidents, or there was nothing thrown, that was a good day. You can go to bed that day and go, that was a good day, I was okay. So you kind of lose that, you kind of accept your lot in life, and you lose that desire to do better and do more. And I think that's what parents need to remember, is where their kids are at in life, in this journey of non-speaking and autism, or whatever path they're on. There's always more, there's always better, and you can't accept where you can't sit still with this stuff. Your kids deserve more and deserve better. So spelling to communicate is not the answer for your kid, or not the answer for you. Find out what it is. Don't stop advocating for your kid. Don't stop fighting. And if you truly believe that the IEP and the ABA and all that path, well, I'd rather even that you stay and advocate on that and fight that, so long as you're striving to do better for your kid, and to get their voice heard in whatever way you can. That's what I would say. I think spelling, obviously I'm all in on spelling to communicate. It's changed my life, and it's changed my son's life and my family's lives. So I'd go, my immediate thing is go find Dana and Evelyn and go talk to them, but just that desire to do better, to want to do more. And that's the message I would send. It's just do more, do better.
Yeah.
You can't do better. If you don't know better exists, how can you do better?
True. So yeah, here, it sounds like, keeping that passion and that fire alive, and not accepting, what
a parent's job with a child, when you have a kid, your job is to provide choice or opportunity for that kid. No matter where you are, from the richest person in the world or the poorest person in the world, your job is to provide opportunity and choice. And the child can take those choices and those opportunities, and they may succeed with them, or they may squander them and go their own path. Who knows? But your job as a parent is to provide that opportunity and choice. Now, when you're dealt the hand of a special needs kid, or a non-speaker, your opportunities and choices are limited. There's less. The society, the world doesn't offer as many choices and opportunities for us. But the job's still the same. Your job is still to provide opportunity and choice, and you still have to strive to do that. And so to provide Keane with the best choices he can make, and maybe he's only got 2 or 3 choices now, whereas a typical kid would have 10. It was still my job to do whatever I could do to get those 2 or 3 choices. And if I can get him a 4th one, that's great. So like for us to be in the situation where I was like, geez, what's my kid going to buy groceries for the rest of his life? 5 years from now, to be oh my God, how am I going to pay for college 5 years from now? The too much, like the mental shift to go from there to there is just night and day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It's like the more opportunities that we can provide, and to do that is what it requires us speaking to people, talking to people, because all of the experts so far are still in that old mindset, and I think having this opportunity for you and I to talk today, for other parents to hear what you have to say and listen to your journey, and just to keep talking to people and showing them, and I oftentimes use as I'm talking with a lot of parents and I'm coaching them, let's say for sessions, and after things start to get pretty smooth, start telling them, you need to bring these letter boards like out and about. Go, when you're at the store, when you're at the restaurant, bring up, like, this is the form of communication that works. And now granted, it might be different than the clinical setting of sitting down and having like a peaceful, quiet area, but that's the practice of it. But then the application of it, like bringing it out, and because it always amazes me when we're, we're out in the community and, whether it's a restaurant or a museum or anywhere really, and people look and, there's so many people out there that either have a family member that, and I say, and I'm going to say autism, but it's not just autism. I mean, spelling to communicate works with, I've seen it work with many different diagnoses. And it's really just, it's anyone, I guess, with a motor and sensory difference. And, for us to show the world that, there is another way, in a really fantastic and reliable way. And people will come over and say, oh my goodness, what are you doing? And, I have a sister that, is autistic, or I have a cousin with Down syndrome, and would that work for them? And I mean, it's really awesome. And I would say, like, when the speller that's being approached, I think, I've seen them get so excited, and then, they're getting to take part in this conversation and advocating, not just for themselves, but now for these people that they don't even know, that someone's like, whoa, I know somebody, and, this could be amazing, and what do you think? And so it's like the application of it is obviously so important, because it's them participating in life, but then it's also them advocating for others just by being in that scenario. So I think.
Well, just listen to any of the other advocates, the self-advocates that are out. I mean, Eno's obviously got his books and stuff like that, but there's so many other self-advocates out there, and just them having that voice to be able to do that it helps. It helped me. It's a tough mental shift. It really is. It's a tough sell to tell people, okay, everything you've been doing wrong, and everything you know about your kid is wrong. It's like it's a tough sell. It's a tough mental shift. It really is. So seeing it and witnessing it, being around Keenan's peers and seeing his peers interact with you or their parents is a huge help to me. Because again, I'm the one getting educated here, and it's me that will need the constant reinforcement to push myself and consequently push Keenan to do the types of things you're talking about that will then impact others. So absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it is. It's work. It's work, but it's fantastic work. It's work that I feel like will really change. I mean, call me crazy, but I
crazy.
think okay, fine, don't. But I really think we're going to change. Like, the humanity is going to change. This is an area that and people that have really been so underserved, and they have so much to share.
I think if the world knew about, like, when you think, going back to the IEP of Keen being taught to count to 20 for 5 years, the mental torture and anguish. If we were doing that to prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, there'd be a human rights outcry for the mental abuse that we're putting people through, and that's literally what it is. It's got to be mental torture, and how these kids survive that, I have no idea. I have no idea, and I think the world needs to know that, and I think there is a better way. There's a better way, and these kids have got so much to offer us because they're crazy smart. It's mind blowing. These kids are crazy smart and they've got so much to offer, and we just need to give them a way to communicate. And that's really all that's happening here, is we're just helping them communicate.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I've often said it's kind of like this. I feel like it's like this symbiotic relationship between neurotypicals and neurodiverse, because when they're lacking motor control, really, and so they are relying on us to help coach them and guide them so that they can get better motor control, which is totally possible when we presume competence, right? And then I feel like they have so much to share with us as neurotypicals, and we have so much to learn from them. And I feel like it's just this beautiful relationship of sharing and learning and from each other, really, that's gonna advance our society.
Absolutely.
Very exciting.
But that presumption of confidence, getting people, because we meet people when we're out walking and stuff. All Keen's obsessed with dogs. He loves dogs. So we stop anybody who's got a dog in their neighborhood knows who we are, and you know they've met Keen because we've stopped every dog, every person, sometimes twice in a day. We stop the same people, and Keen has the same script that he goes through with these people. And even though I've told people that they don't need to respond to the script, they keep doing because they're still responding to that physical piece that they see, and it's tough for me to get them to go, he's just looking to interact with you. He knows the dog's name. He doesn't want the dog to sit. He'll go, what's his name? It's sit. He's soft ears. And there's the same script that he goes through every person, every dog. As I said, the same people, we go through the same script, sometimes multiple times in a week. And getting them to see that there's more to it and to change how they interact, because that's really what it's going to take, is for more people to presume competence, because most people don't. Even the parents aren't. If we as parents aren't doing it yet, it's tough to get the rest of the world to do it. And as I said to you earlier, I still need constant reminders to presume competence.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a tough shift for us.
It is, but absolutely 100% worthwhile. So, well, thank you so much, Dave, for being with me today and allowing our listeners to get a peek into your world and Kian's world. And I feel like there's so much we can learn, obviously, from the non-speakers when we have the opportunity to sit down with them and communicate. And but as a parent, I feel like it's so important to hear from you guys and hear, some of the struggles, because obviously, that happens. That's life, whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, but there are struggles, and people need to hear that. And then they also need to hear that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And
my recommendation would be to somebody who's listening to this that hasn't come to one of the Tampa Bay Letterboard community events and come meet people, meet more parents like myself, and meet more guys like Kian, and see how well they are and how well balanced they are and how happy they are. I think that's the best introduction they can get to S2C, is to see it in practice and to see how these kids are and how these parents are. I think most will like it.
I agree. I'm a little partial to TBLVC, but I agree. So if you're ever in the Tampa Bay area, well, we do have a Facebook page and an Instagram page and a website coming very soon. But we do a couple events every month. Sometimes we hang out at the park and play kickball. Sometimes we go to museums. We do game nights. And this weekend, we're actually going to do a really cool ferry ride from Tampa to St. Pete, hang out in St. Pete, and then ride the ferry back to Tampa. And it's really laid back. Everybody is super cool, I must say, and very friendly. So, and we're always looking to meet new people and make new friends. So if you're interested in something like that, look us up. We are called the Tampa Bay Letterboard Community, and we are always eager to make new friends. So with that, I guess I will close us out today. So thank you, everybody, for listening to us today. I think that I'm sure you had some eye-opening moments of listening to Dave and hearing what he had to say. So thank you again, Dave, for being so vulnerable and willing to share all the parts of life, the exciting parts and like the tough parts and challenging parts. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So thank you for everything. You've been amazing. You truly are.
You are welcome. My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. I can't